Hello, my friend, and welcome to the study. Today I thought we would look at some philosophy, some flying, and good old cipher. But a very nice writing, a bit of biography, and some nice sounds too. I have a few books here that are very philosophical, also a bit inspirational. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, as you might know, was a pilot in the very early days of airmail and flying. He was also an author who wrote about his thoughts and experiences while flying. And he wrote Le Petit Prince, or The Little Prince, a story many of us know and remember from our childhood, about a strange boy who teaches a lost aviator the meaning of love. But we're not going to talk about The Little Prince today. I've got some books by another pilot author, whom you might also know, Richard Bach, famously having written Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Many of us who grew up in the later 20th century are familiar with this book and its photographs and the story of a seagull who symbolically finds the meaning of life and pleasure and satisfaction in learning how to fly marvelously, in going against the inclinations of his flock and following his heart. It's a sort of a philosophical story as well, existential. And another book by Richard Bach is Ferrets Aloft. It's one of the books of the Ferret Chronicles. Now, what we have here is a prologue or preface. It's written in Ferune, or ferret runes. How shall we decipher this? Well, it's a simple substitution cipher, and there are a few words that we can probably guess that we see often here. This one looks to be ferret, ferret, and the ferret. So we know a few letters. So what I'm going to do is give you some lovely these sounds while I decipher this on some paper and a nice pen. Make an alphabet, and while I'm doing that, I'll tell you a bit about Richard Bach and the Ferret Chronicles. Richard Bach is a bit of an odd duck. He has lived a rather exciting life, written some thought-provoking and at times endearing stories with a philosophical bent. He was born in 1936 in Illinois, and in 1941 his family moved to a ranch in Arizona and then to Long Beach, California, when he was just a boy. After finishing high school, Richard became a cadet in the Air Force, where he learned to fly. In 1958, he returned to Long Beach, and he wrote articles for Flying magazine, having truly caught the flying bug. That next year, he was inspired to write his famous Jonathan Livingston Seagull, but he left the story unfinished, having been called back into active duty in France from 1961 to 1962, flying F-84Fs, where he was promoted to captain. Also loving to write, he published a book about his time in France, his first book, Stranger to the Ground, in 1963. The previous year, he had become friends with Ray Bradbury, and also became a member of Ray's exclusive writers group, where he would debut his Jonathan Livingston Seagull manuscript. As life went on, in 1965, he moved to Iowa, where he worked for the Antique Airplane Association for a time, and also kept up his aviation interests alongside his passion for writing that would see him living in many different places and holding different occupations throughout his life. In the meantime, Jonathan Livingston Seagull received 18 rejections at publishers before Macmillan agreed to publish it in 1970, with Russell Munson's photographs of seagulls in flight. It would become a worldwide bestseller, selling over 44 million copies. It has remained continuously in print for over 50 years now. Richard and Jonathan Seagull were even featured on Time magazine's November 13th, 1972 cover. In 1973, it was made into a film directed by Hal Bartlett and nominated for 2 Academy Awards. The soundtrack album, written and recorded by Neil Diamond, was a huge success, earning Diamond a Grammy and a Golden Globe Award. The Ferret Chronicles is much later in Richard Bach's career. A series of short novels set in a world where ferrets can do things like fly and write books and drive boats. And with this spirit of adventure and accomplishment, these stories are told about ferrets and older generations and younger generations, and the communication between the teacher and student, and the broader idea of what we can learn from previous generations, what we can learn from looking into ourselves and trying hard to accomplish something we love. The novels of the Ferret Chronicles all begin with sort of a prequel or a preface written in Ferune that we're doing here. And the chronicles consist of Rescue Ferrets at Sea, which was published in 2002, Ferrets Aloft, also 2002, Writer Ferrets Chasing the Muse, also 2002, Rancher Ferrets on the Range, 2003, Last War, Detective Ferrets and the Case of the Golden Deed, released in 2003, and the last, Curious Lives, Adventures from the Ferret Chronicles, published in 2005 and again in 2007, and a second printing with a new cover in 2008. a young ferret, loving the sky, built for himself wings of cloth, stretched on a frame of bamboo. Fastening these upon his shoulders, he jumped from a high place and crashed to the ground. Again and again he tried to fly, after each crash fashioning improved wings, risking his life to test them. In time he learned to fly and not to crash, circling high in rising airs, landing gently at the end of each flight. He was filled with delight and taught his skills to others who loved the sky as well, who yearned to fly for themselves. One day an eagle soared past the ferret and his students and scoffed. "Beginners, never will you fly so high or so fast as me." Hearing this, the students were discouraged, for it seemed to them that what the eagle said was true, that a ferret's place was on the ground. "Be not dismayed by the eagle's words," their teacher told them, "for the mark of true flight is not our altitude, but our attitude, not our speed, but our joy in the paths we find above the earth." The students listened, welcomed his truth to be their own. Aloft again, they treasured their adventures and skills and discoveries as never they had before, and passed along to younger ferrets the wisdom they learned from the sky. We are led, when we share our loves, to an enchanted life of inner happiness, which unsharing others cannot know. The time has come to thank our patrons of the study for the month of December 2023. Thank you to everyone watching. Thanks for a great year in the study. And a special thank you to our study Patreons who so generously show their support. So, hopefully with the missing letters of Ferune, I shall write everyone's name in Ferune. Andreas, thank you. Thank you. Ben, thank you. Thank you. Bernie, thank you. Thank you. David M, thank you. Joshua. Thank you. Thank you. Pirate Gary, thank you. Thank you. Romulus, thank you. Thank you. Therim, thank you. Thank you. Carman, 1000. Thank you. So, my friends, as we end this year in this study, we look forward to another fine year of peace and relaxation, your refuge and respite from the worries and cares and stresses of the outside world whenever you need them. I look forward to seeing you there. Have a very happy and beautiful new year. Be good to yourself, be kind to others, and be